And blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Our great friend David Bozell joining us from foramerica.org. David, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Kevin. How are you? Have you pushed all in on your Bitcoin futures this morning? You ready to make a killing today?
That's the funniest thing. I remember when Bitcoin was, $2,000. We've got a guy who is a friend of ours. His name is Phil, and he's actually got the only Bitcoin ATM in the state. And,
oh, my God.
And now,
cool.
And I kept watching it go up and go up and go up, and it's at $11,000 now. So I guess I missed it, but when it goes to 20, I'll think these were the bargain times. So
don't miss the boat. Don't miss the boat. It's floating away from us. And that's the extent of my Bitcoin knowledge. That's all I know.
Well, right. I was going to say, and you, I'm sure you're heavily leveraged in that as well, David.
Right. Well, no, I diversified my bonds, sir. That is a form of currency I'm not familiar with, and God bless people who have invested because they're doing well. I guess. I mean, that's whatever. I mean, depending on which outlet you're pulling it from. I mean, some of it already has 20,000 already. It has the value, so it's a new age, new day.
Exactly, and I don't know if we should sell the farm or not, but then again, so was Enron. Enron was unbeatable as well.
That's it.
David Bozell, let's talk a little bit about. I was watching the Sunday shows. I don't know why, but you would think that Al Franken was a non-story. It was all about Roy Moore.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, here's the sitting senator from Minnesota who, I'm not so sure that he will resign. I think, Rush made the point late last week, if Judge Moore wins, that could give Al Franken enough reason to stick around, which is rather silly premise for Al, really rather silly position for Al Franken to be taking, given that there's photographic evidence of he not being able to keep his hands in his pockets. So it's the left, the media. We've talked about it before. They're in cahoots from a political standpoint, just raw political standpoint. The Minnesota governor will appoint a Democrat senator to take Al Franken's place, so it's not like Republicans have much of a shot to take that seat, and it's voted Democrat. Though, Trump lost Minnesota, I think, by about half a point. So when it does come time for a legit race and a non-appointed race, you depending on who the Republicans might put up, there could be some possibilities there. I don't know if you're aware, but Minnesota has the highest voter participation rate in the last 4 cycles. Something about the Minnesota nice culture up there, but they turn out. They outpace the national average, whether it's a presidential election or an off-year election. Those folks vote up there. So, and Trump just barely lost, and that's one of the regrets that I think Steve Bannon and some of the team up there have voiced, since the election of 2016, is that they didn't visit Minnesota in the closing days. They thought maybe they could have picked it off had they visited there. So it'll be interesting to see. That's not just on a raw political level, and I think Judge Moore is going to win handily tomorrow, and so that'll be sort of a new wave to the story. I don't know, Kevin, how effective Judge Moore is going to be as a senator, and I put the word effective in quotes. And I don't even know how you define that in this day and age. I use that word because that's the word Al Franken used to cite his resignation. He had determined that he could no longer be an effective senator. I'm not sure that Judge Moore is going to be any more effective. Because, this whole entire city is going to turn its collective back on him. So it's just an interesting dynamic for sure. But I think he's going to win handily.
David Bozell joining us from ForAmerica.org on KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Well, that's the thing. Could he be Donald Trump's favorite senator? Because really, Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of allies, a lot of friends in Washington.
Good point. The way the Senate is run these days, it's just very, very difficult to really have a lot of influence. Because all these bills are being written out of the leadership office, there's people complain left and right about, I remember during the Obamacare repeal effort, Rand Paul, the junior senator of Kentucky, couldn't even get his hands on the bill being written by Mitch McConnell, the senior senator from Kentucky. And Rand Paul, if you remember, he went around the Capitol looking for it and had a camera following him. And his own senior senator wouldn't let him see it until a couple of days prior. The problem with being an effective legislature today, House or Senate, is that these bills are being written by leadership offices. The House is even worse, Kevin. 7 Republicans out of the very powerful Ways and Means Committee, 7 out of the 21 have already announced their retirement. And that's about the Ways and Means Committee is probably the most powerful committee there in terms of, because it deals with tax policy, it deals with appropriations policy. And people have just decided, I don't have a voice. I can't exercise my voice. I can't really represent my constituents. I'm being asked to swallow bad bill after bad bill at made-up artificial deadline after made-up artificial deadline. The next one coming up is going to be the spending bill in a couple of weeks, where they're going to ask, Republican leadership is going to ask Republican House members and Senate members to swallow $4 trillion, to vote for $4 trillion, having barely been able to read any of it, with no open, transparent process to litigate it, all because these guys know, the leadership knows, that the members don't want to stay over Christmas. And so that's why they pack this stuff over the holidays. It's just an awful way to go about their business. And so you've got, whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump or a never-Trumper, it doesn't matter. You really don't have a voice because leadership has just basically taken over the legislating process completely. And so it's going to be up to these members. Most of them have just decided they're out. But at the end of the day, the membership elects the leadership that they want. So I don't really their cries of concern don't really carry a lot of water with me, because at the end of the day, they're electing this leadership team. So these dynamics have to change if constituents want their members to represent them adequately, because otherwise we're just going to get bad spending bill after bad spending bill. That they just signed a 2-week CR last week, a continuing resolution. Kevin, that's not winning. Donald Trump signed that thing in the dark in the middle of the night to keep the government open. That's not winning. What Donald Trump's being able to do from the Oval Office, what he can control in the regulatory front, high marks. He gave a video, Kevin. He released a video, a 2.5-minute long video on Twitter about the Kate Steinle case. It is terrific. I wish every Republican member could speak with that kind of conviction on the issue of illegal immigration in the Kate Steinle case, and the importance of protecting the American citizenry. It was terrific. So I'll give him high marks for all that stuff. But in terms of government spending, that is where this administration and the entire Congress has fallen flat.
David Bozell joining us from ForAmerica.org at KIDO Talk Radio. Here's another one that gets me. Just the behavior of the NFL. And I don't know if you caught the end of the Seahawks-Jaguars game. A lot of Seahawks fans here, but, the NFL has really become a thug league. And, this is something that you at For America cover. By the way, I loved your tweets at ForAmerica.org where you had Al Franken groping everybody. It was so funny. And I recommend everybody follow you all on that. That was just so funny.
Just trying to have a little fun. Try to bring a little levity to the conversation. But, yeah, we we picked some famous photographs and then photoshopped Mr. Franken, Al the Groper, as we call him. Not to be confused with Al Roker, but Al the Groper. And so, yeah, it's the Seahawks pitched a fit. Michael Bennett, liberal media's big hero when it comes to protesting, police, so-called police brutality and those types of things and social issues. Michael Bennett loses his cool, goes low, tries to injure one of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then one of his teammates. Now, look, I've actually seen that, not in a football game, but in a basketball game. You cannot, if you're a fan, you cannot throw stuff at the players. And so some accountability has to be put on Jacksonville Jaguar security staff. I mean, you just cannot do that. And I don't necessarily blame the Seahawks guy for getting hot and wanting to go after somebody who threw a can of beer at him. But it was almost like Malice at the Palace with the drug. When they
That's right.
But the Ron Artest.
I have to tell you though, I found it very entertaining because the Seahawk guy was getting pelted and he's going into this. I mean, again, maybe I've watched too much WWE, but it was just so flippin' funny. And like he's going to beat everybody up, and the fans weren't afraid. And you're thinking to yourself, David Bozell, a year, 2 years ago, the NFL was the thing, but the empty stadiums, the social justice propaganda, trying to pay off the players to stand for the national anthem, and then you have the fights that are happening and the cheap shots. You're thinking to yourself, how did this game go wrong? And maybe Mark Cuban was right when he said that the NFL won't be around 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I was listening to the Redskins radio feed driving around yesterday, and they could not be. They were making the observation that Los Angeles was not exactly enthusiastic that a football game was being played in StubHub Field in Los Angeles against the Chargers. Now that's a small facility. I think it holds about 35,000. But the radio guys were commenting that they thought that they could count 10,000 people for a professional football game. That's unheard of. You don't get me. You have better attendance at preseason games. If I were the new Los Angeles Chargers, I might think about going up to Boise where they care about their football a little bit more than Los Angeles. I'm not joking. That's where I think some of this might evolve. Is that you're going to have some teams whose fan bases have just totally lost interest. I've never thought that Los Angeles would work, and the fact that they put two teams there is kind of ridiculous. And so you're going to have to go find some fan bases, maybe with some smaller fields, but at least you can pack them in, that care about their football. But this is all a response to how the NFL reacted to the players kneeling and protesting the national anthem. I mean, look at the response of just the collective response on Twitter and social media to how the players in the Army-Navy game presented themselves versus how the Seattle Seahawks presented themselves. These guys, they're getting paid a lot of money. I understand the game is brutal physically. I think that's more what Mark Cuban was getting at. It's such a brutal sport. These guys are flying 1,000 miles an hour, weighing as much as they do, as strong as they are, that the average person almost can't relate to what they're doing, which is both an allure, but also can kind of work against fans and work against the sport. Working against the sport, really, in that I just couldn't even fathom going that fast, being that strong, wearing all that gear, and being paid millions of dollars to do it, and then watching your teammates kind of stick the middle finger up at our heritage and our culture. That is not going to be a recipe for success.
Indeed.
For this league.
All right, David Bozell, finally, is there any good news? You've been pretty much Debbie Downer today.
I know. I feel bad about that. I need to bring more of it. The Keaton kid, the kid whose video I guess he was being bullied at school. Beautiful little boy. I'm sure everyone's seen it. I mean, it's just it's been watched millions upon millions of times. It is terrific to see everyone from Dana White at the UFC to Sean Hannity to Chris Evans, Captain America, all inviting this kid to all their events, their shows. I mean, Chris Evans invited this kid to the premiere of the Avengers next spring. I mean, this kid has got to be walking on air. So, good for him, and I hope he gets, I hope he, when he gets back to school today, can kind of, he's got a little giddy up in his step and say, hey, I'm going to go see the Avengers with Captain America.
Well, I was going to do a video like that, but nobody really picked up on it for me. They just said, we like to bully you, Kevin Miller.
Well, when you make a killing on Bitcoin, then I think you can put that video out. We're all going to be, you're going to be on CNBC and leave Boise and.
Yes, I'll become your next door neighbor there. Wouldn't that be? I'm sure you live near Obama, so it'll be you, me, and Obama.
Oh my gosh, no, that is Northwest. Oh, if you want, okay, one more Debbie Downer thing.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, Washington D.C. It was just announced has the 5 richest counties, surrounding counties, in America today. 6 out of the top 8, but the top 5. Wealthiest counties in America all surround Washington, D.C. Why? One of the reasons is they're about to spend $4 trillion of your dollars next week in the cover of darkness.
Okay, hold on, David Bozell. Hold on. Can you hold on for a minute here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're going to have to keep you over here. We have to answer the story from the New York Times. Trump versus the presidency, an hourly battle for preservation and 12 Diet Cokes a day. We're gonna get to that in a minute. David Bozell, please, look, we don't do this very often, but it is the Christmas season, so please hang on. Our great friend David Bozell joining us from ForAmerica.org. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And once again, David Bozell joining us. Our time is 6:26. Why don't we do this? Let's get to traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio so we can make sure we have enough time for David Bozell. Good morning, Dave. All right, David, what do you make of this story? It's picked up by the Idaho Statesman. From the New York Times over the weekend, Donald Trump watches a lot of TV and a lot of Diet Cokes. Where do these people get this? I mean, well, you know how the media works. Is this a work of fiction, or what do you make of this?
Well, I don't doubt that he hate watches CNN to get himself fired up. That I would believe to be true. He's a creature of television. As much as you might say he doesn't watch television, I think that's really a rather silly claim to make. Of course he does. I mean, he's a ratings junkie. And he views the part of the article where I really agreed with, and I thought that was true, was how he's engineered the West Wing to view each day as a television show. And you want to get as much ratings, you want to win each day as possible. It's a kind of war mentality that, from a Republican standpoint, George W. Bush never had any of that, in the sense that he just thought compassionate conservatism would the media would love him and his administration because of that stance.
Yes.
And it never came to pass. So it's the Diet Coke stuff. I mean, I kind of find that hard to believe. That's a lot of Diet Coke, 12 Diet Cokes a day. But he's been known to call Maggie Haberman from the New York Times personally. So probably so it's sourced right from him, right from Trump himself. So,
wow.
But it was a rather silly article all the way around.
By the way, breaking news: explosion confirmed just outside of Times Square.
Just saw that.
Yeah, Port Authority is closed right now. We'll have more coming up, but
prayers for all those folks over there. In New York City.
Exactly. Finally, so Roy Moore gets elected. They're not going to expel him. The Republicans have come around. Hey, he's our guy. I mean, even if Mitch McConnell doesn't say it, and Richard Shelby, the former Democrat, doesn't say it, Roy Moore is going to be seated in the United States Senate. He's
going to be seated. Now, he's going to be a vote for conservatives, I would probably venture to guess 85 to 90% of the time. He does have some votes in his history that, he likes social programs, social welfare, funding programs. So those are going to be votes that aren't, quote unquote, conservative. But by and large, I think he's going to have a couple problems when he gets here. Number one, staffing. Good luck trying to hire a communications director. God bless him. I'm not so sure a communications professional is going to want a seasoned one anyways, is going to want to take a bite of that apple and give that one a go. That'll be a biggest issue. Number two is getting caught up in the rules and procedures of the Senate, which is going to be very complicated.
I've got one for him, Corey Lewandowski.
Well, I think Mr. Lewandowski's making himself a nice bit of Bitcoin.
Right, he's busy selling his book. And bashing Amazon. Right, yes. That's
right. He's cashing in. That'll be an issue. Getting caught up on the Senate procedures will be a little bit of an issue in the sense that you don't want him to embarrass himself. But he's going to be a solid vote for Alabamans. He's going to be a solid vote for conservatives on most issues. One of the things I hope Judge Moore does, I wish Ted Cruz would do this, I wish Mike Lee would do this, and Marco Rubio would do this. Susan Collins and John McCain wield the most power because they wait and they wait and they wait and they use their leverage of waiting till the very end. And the bill keeps coming over to them. So often conservatives are asked to just support the bill right out of the blocks and watch the bill trend leftward to appease these left-wing senators. And conservative senators need to band a little bit together here and use their leverage more adequately and more appropriately than they already have. I mean, Mike Lee and Marco Rubio had a great amendment the other day to the tax cut bill that would have provided more relief on the tax credit, and they didn't get it out there. They got creamed on the floor. They didn't really make their case, and that they didn't get out there from the outset and said, this is what we want to get our support initially. They gave their support to the overriding bill at the outset, and therefore any improvements that they wanted to make were just dismissed. And so conservatives need to do a better job of using their own leverage. Hopefully, Judge Moore will be a part of that solution and not contribute to the problem. So,
David Boesel, we appreciate you. Hopefully, we'll talk to you before the end of the year. If not, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you guys, and get a little warmer up there. 27 sounds burr.
Well, we know you're a big star, so ho ho ho.
Take it easy, Kevin.
Take care, sir. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Our great friend David Boesel, you're listening to Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's find out what's happening in your world. Good morning, Maggie. And a note of inspiration today. Maybe you've seen this on social media. Maybe you haven't. But here you have, we're going to play this video of this little boy, Keaton Jones. Emotional appeal inspires people from Snoop Dogg to, as David Boesel said, Captain America, to other folks rallying to his defense, even Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things. It is amazing, and it just shows you how real bullying is. Let's take a listen here. This is a little boy in his car filming this video.
Just out of curiosity, why do they bully? What's the point of it? Why do you find joy in taking innocent people and finding a way to be mean to them? It's not okay.
What do they say to you?
They make fun of my nose. They call me ugly. They say I have no friends.
What'd they do to you at lunch?
Put milk on me and put ham down my clothes. Threw bread at me.
Is it just you?
Yep.
Or is it other kids too that feel that way?
Say it's other kids too.
How's that make you feel?
I don't like that they do it to me, and I for sure don't like that they do it to other people, because it's not okay. People that are different don't need to be criticized about it. It's not their fault. But if you are made fun of, just don't let it bother you. Just stay strong, I guess. Hard.
Right.
But it'll probably get better one day.
Yeah, it will. Boy, here you have this young little boy being interviewed by his mom, telling it like it is. You know, today we have the anti-bullying campaign, and we're a lot more sensitive than we were, and people make fun of that, but how many of us can relate to this young man? How many of us remember that? Now, look, before I went to Idaho, before I journeyed here to our beloved Treasure Valley at 580-5436-580-KID, I would say, look, kid, I give you the typical news talk response that you would get from primarily, you know, people that are polarizing and such. And look, that's what we do here. We have an opinion and we stick with it. But, you know, and, you know, people would say, oh, Kevin, you're being politically correct. But here we have a little boy who was really hurt. And I can remember being bullied at school. I'm sure we all can, especially if you're new to a school. You come in, and what happens? You don't know people. Being a military brat, that happened all the time. People didn't like how you looked, where you were from, that sort of thing. Yeah, we do live in a Stranger Things society today. But on the other hand, at 580-5436-580-KIDO, we have folks helping this young man out. Now, the anti-bullying campaign, I really don't know how effective it is. One thing, though, that is effective is the word being spread. And hopefully it gets spread to kids. You know, that you work more positively. You help others. Because really, what is the benefit of bullying people? Well, nothing really. I mean, it teaches you to overcome things. But here you have this little boy that's got his feelings hurt. By the way, I know all of our schools are really into this anti-bullying thing, and there should be zero tolerance for it. At 580-5436-580-KIDO, just like there should be zero tolerance for fake news, or there should be zero tolerance for, how should I put this, sexual harassment, or there should be zero tolerance for, you know, taking advantage of people. Now, usually the people that say these things, sometimes they're hypocrites. Sometimes they are. And then people fall. And we're seeing that all the time. But, you know, to anyone who is struggling, and by the way, at this time of year, it's difficult for a lot of people. And, you know, you see this. I don't know where I was. Can't remember where I was yesterday. But you see people in stores. Oh, that's right. I was with Reverend Bill. We went to a place and it was packed. And usually this facility is not packed at all. But it was because everybody's off. And, you know, if you're in the service business, this is the Super Bowl. Whether you work retail or not, this is the Super Bowl. This is where, you know, everybody comes to the restaurant. Everybody's home for the holidays. Everybody, you know, wants to get together. And, you know, it's funny. We are such creatures of stress. I really wish we could figure out a way to solve the stress. It's self-inflicted, right? It's almost like the caffeine that we have to have, or the cholesterol, or whatever type of thing. But stress isn't good. It's almost like we're wired that way, right? Maybe that's why yoga or hot yoga is so big. But at 580-5436-580-KIDO, you know, this is a tough time of year for a lot of people. There are people that are away from their homes, their traditional homes. There are people that are going to be alone for Christmas. And there are other people that go out of their way to do wonderful things, whether it's working at the rescue mission, whether it's people that work at, you know, the Humane Society, the West Valley Humane Society, our friends at Meridian Canine Rescue. You make a difference. And we want everybody to get through this. You know, sometimes we forget that. People coming in, everybody wants to be entertained and such. And then you have the people that work those retail gigs. It's a tough time of year. It is a tough time of year. But again, there really isn't anything to say except, everybody is against bullying. On the other hand, you could say, well, Kevin, aren't you being too touchy-feely? Aren't you being too sensitive? You watch that video of that little boy, and I don't think you'd feel anything different. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the body politic, the state of Alabama, number one. It's funny that this is such a national story. We'll give you the latest on this suspect in the Port Authority explosion. Had a device strapped on his body, the latest out of New York City. We'll give you the update there, of course, at the top of the hour as well, and we'll have that for you in about 30 seconds. One more thing, though. One more thing when we're talking about the tough time of year. I'm sure you've heard about it. You heard Maggie talk about it. You have this guy that crashed his car into the Ada County Courthouse because he wanted to go back to jail. Don't you think there could have been a better way of doing that? I mean, what goes on in somebody's mind? Again, these are crazy times. Nobody's working, and if you are working, you're working incredibly hard serving the people that are off. And you've got this guy that wanted to go back to jail, so he drove his car, tried to drive it into the courthouse. Well, again, that's easier said than done. And you see the photos all the time of the car just being stuck there. It's rather ridiculous, but people lose perspective. So what's the lesson for all of us today? I mean, easier said than done, true believers, but is to take a deep breath, say our prayers, and keep our perspective. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And Ray Amaya, thank you for the heads up. Let's go to New York City now with the very latest on this explosion near Times Square.
The good news here, guys, is that apparently he may have been the only person injured. If there are other injuries, I haven't heard about them yet. They may be minor, I don't know. But what you're seeing behind me is a shutdown 8th Avenue in rush hour. Every avenue is packed. A lot of the side streets are closed. Traffic is at a virtual standstill, and none of the trains are running through Port Authority, Times Square area as of last report. So, it's a nightmare for anybody trying to get to work this Monday morning, and certainly a tough scene for these first responders as well.
Indeed. All right. Hey, Rick, the New York Post is reporting that the suspected bomber had wires attached to him and was armed with a pipe bomb. I know that's not been confirmed by you, and a battery pack. He was taken into custody. That's consistent with what you have been told, right?
Well, it is, Steve. There were early reports of a suicide vest,
right,
and then they were backing off of that. There were reports of a man with wires strapped to his body. So it could well be that was some sort of detonation device, that he had a pipe bomb, but he had some sort of remote detonator attached to a cell phone, perhaps, or some sort of switch. And that may have been what people were seeing. And as you know, early reports can often be wrong. So that's why we're trying to be careful here, not just with the details of the incident, but also with the name of the suspect.
Rick, from what you know, how quick are they over his residence in Brooklyn at this very moment?
Within minutes. Within minutes. They've gone to his property. We saw this happen on the West Side Highway. Initially reports came out that it was a gun incident, that the guy was shooting people, and it turned out that he had run them down with his truck. But he did have a couple of fake guns, a pellet gun and a paint gun. But they quickly went to the Home Depot where he rented that truck. They traced that truck to a second Home Depot. They quickly went to his home, and they talked to his family and his friends. That happened, within minutes. And that's no doubt happening right now here in Manhattan, also in Brooklyn, and anywhere else, any other addresses that's connected to this gentleman. Now we have a member of the NYPD telling the pedestrians to clear the streets because they need this room to work.
Yeah. Wow, so they keep backing you up more and more instead of narrowing down the site, they're actually they're widening it.
Well, they often do expand scenes if there's a concern of more incidents. I don't think that's the case here. I think they're just trying to get a truck through here and clear some traffic. This seems to be pretty well locked down at this point. I think they know where it happened. They obviously know where it happened, and they're trying to just get all the evidence and information out of that one location.
Hey, Rick, we do find out.
You're looking up 8th Avenue now.
Yep. We do find out more information. See if this mirrors yours. We know the man, the 37-year-old, has been in the country at least 7 years.
According to Bill Bratton, who's the former commissioner of New York. All right, Rick, thank you for your reporting. I know you're anxious to get some more information. Let's talk to Dan Bongino and find out, Dan, based on this information, this latest information, what's going through your mind? This guy, 37 years old, he lived in Brooklyn, Bill Bratton says, for 7 years, a New York, Brooklyn resident.
Yeah, well, the first question here is, what was the motivation? I mean, was he radicalized into some ISIS ideology online? Did he come here previously radicalized? If he did, I mean, these are the big questions. One, radicalized. Two, did he come here? If he did come here, how did he get here? Was he here legally? If he came here legally, by which process? These are really important questions. And, hey, one more quick thing. I think maybe some of the confusion we're hearing now about the suicide vest versus the pipe bomb. It'd be a little unusual to put a pipe bomb on a suicide vest. The way the vests are constructed are a little different. Pipe bomb is typically something you leave behind. He may have had both, and that may be some of the confusion in the reporting.
You know, I just wonder, the other story is going to be, as usual, the reaction to the would-be explosion. You know, there are some stubborn reports that there was somewhat of a stampede. Can you imagine that? If anyone's been through any of these major hubs like the Port Authority, you can't move anyway, let alone if you try to run. So I'm wondering if we got away without any injuries after the explosion, that would be a small miracle.
Yeah, but, you know, Brian, that's New Yorkers. You know it. I mean, you guys are there all the time. I was just up there with you. I mean, I lived there my whole life. They are an unbelievably resilient lot. I mean, God bless the Big Apple. Really. They are some really tough people up there, and I wish they didn't have to be so tough all the time, but this has been forced upon them, and they almost always rise to the challenge, so God bless them.
All right. Dr. Gorka, you were listening to Rick Leventhal's report regarding the person that they regard as a suspect, apparently has been in the United States for the last 7 years. What are your observations?
I've been following the reports on the internet and social media. There is talk now that the individual is connected to Bangladesh, so he has some South Asian connections potentially. I've also watched the video, purportedly the video from inside the terminal when the explosion happened, and it does, if that is truly the CCTV footage of the incident, it does in fact look as if this was a premature detonation, because the individual was walking down a passageway with just a few other commuters when the device detonated and then injured him, and he is seen in the video on the ground after the detonation. So if these are confirmed, then New York is blessed today. The good Lord has blessed New Yorkers, because this attack was not executed as intended, and maybe by somebody from the South Asian region.
You know, and Dr. Gorka, if this did detonate prematurely, this goes back to something that we have talked on this program and this channel about for a number of years, and that is some of these people who have evil intentions ultimately are bad bomb makers.
Yes, absolutely. So this is it doesn't look as if this is somebody who came recently from a war zone. That's one of the most serious threats the NYPD, the FBI, the CIA has, that you have an individual who's been in an insurgency in Syria or Iraq, learned how to really build IEDs, learned to handle fully automatic weapons, comes back to America or comes to America and then uses those skills to deadly effect. Hopefully it looks as if this isn't one of those individuals. This is an amateur who was recruited locally, had to learn these skills online or by second hand, and as such was not good at building these devices.
But
thank the good Lord.
A lot of times, Dr. Gorka, the bomb maker's the genius, and the guy, the mule, or the would-be sacrificial lamb is the person who's just dull enough to go try to pull it off, and oftentimes he doesn't.
That's what happened with the shoe bomber, exactly, Brian. So we now know that the shoe bomber, who was also caught alive, he did not build that device. That device was built for him, but he failed to detonate it successfully. So this could be a redo of the shoe bomber incident from December of 2001.
All right, thanks, Dr. Gorka. Ainsley, recap where we're at right now.
All right, so if you're just waking up, Port Authority, you can see on the bottom of your screen, a suspect in Port Authority explosion had device strapped on his body. So we got word probably about an hour ago, maybe a little bit more, that there was possibly a suspect down in Port Authority where the subways are, underneath the road, where the AC and E lines meet, and someone had something strapped around, some sort of a bomb strapped on their body, and it prematurely exploded.
And you're listening to Fox News on the radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely. All right, we'll have the latest on that explosion at the top of the hour from Fox News. Remember, KIDO Talk Radio is your home for Fox News on the radio. Again, repeating our top story. An explosion Monday morning at the Port Authority bus terminal in Midtown Manhattan, and has the New York police rushing there, closing off 42nd Street to 8th Avenue. Near Times Square, a pipe bomb detonated in the subway station. Police are saying this is an ISIS-related attack. You heard Dr. Gorka. You heard Fox and Friends. You'll hear more of that at the top of the hour as we continue on. Remember, when breaking news happens, you're home for Fox News on the radio. When people mention Fox News, it is KIDO Talk Radio. Again, our thoughts and prayers to all impacted by what's going on in New York City. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. We go live now to Fox News.